Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, we got some more 2A news for you. This one is one doozy of an update. This one comes from the desk of Mr. John Crump over at Ammo Land. As you know, a great friend and colleague of mine, a wonderful dude. You can definitely check out his YouTube channel, John Crump News here. If you'd like to support him more directly, go subscribe to his channel. Really good guy. Before we get started on today's video, I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting today's video. If you are looking for a career as a gunsmith, they are your go-to people. They've got some awesome curriculum, wonderful instructors, great financial incentives. They got some awesome drone programs, reloading programs, obviously their gunsmithing courses. So check them out, SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, and tell them Eric sent you. Check out the link below. All right, we're going to get into this one here. This is from, obviously, Ammo Land. And now, I knew about this a couple of days ago. But, of course, out of professional courtesy, I didn't want to, break any information because, obviously, John was in the know on this particular situation. And we wanted to make sure that he dropped all the information that he gathered so that I could share it here with you. And a big thanks to John for forwarding this article to me so I could share it with you guys, my viewers. All right. A new leak shows that the ATF will pass a rule to eliminate private sales. Right. Remember, this goes into that gun show loophole territory that they're always complaining about. Let's get into this here. All right. August 6th, John Crump. Mr. Crump. Okay. The Biden administration will use executive orders and the weaponized ATF to issue a rule limiting the private sales of firearms. According to the New York Times and verified by Ammo Land news sources, the new rule is expected to be unveiled by the end of the year. President Joe Biden plans to announce that he is directing the ATF to close what Everytown calls the private sales loophole and the digital loophole. The private sales loophole is when an individual sells a firearm for profit but does not possess a federal firearms license, also known as an FFL. Biden will call on the ATF to develop a new rule requiring anyone who makes any profit by selling firearms to possess an FFL. Guns tend to increase in value over time. A gun purchased in 1980 will likely sell for much more money today than its original value. The so-called digital loophole includes marketplaces like Arms List, Firearms Classified, where private individuals can list their firearms for sale. The Biden administration wants to see these marketplaces shut down, but is unclear exactly how that unconstitutional goal will be accomplished. Websites like Arms List do not sell firearms directly. In case you guys don't know, a website like that is where potential private sellers get connected, essentially, and the platform itself has a complete hands-off approach to the way the transaction is conducted. All they're simply doing is facilitating the people meeting up and discussing what they're wanting to buy, sell, trade, or whatnot, that sort of thing. Ammo Land News spoke to Arms List founder Jonathan Gibbon about the attacks his company faces and the upcoming ATF rule. Arms List has been battling anti-gun groups for years, fending off several lawsuits. Arms List has a perfect track record at defeating these attacks, but the cases are costly. Private party transactions are not a loophole, Gibbon told Ammo Land News. Buying and selling firearms is a guaranteed right under the Second Amendment. Interfering with state laws allowing citizens to exercise their Second Amendment right should concern everyone. Americans have a First Amendment constitutional right to use the internet to communicate about their other constitutional rights. The rule, currently in draft form, is expected to be announced later this year. The announcement will be followed by a public comment period. The Biden administration aims to reveal the final rule by late spring or early summer of 2024 and for it to go into full effect by the fall of next year. The rule is still in the early stages of development, so the timeline is subject to change. Previous ATF rule changes, such as the frame and receiver rule, bump stock rule, and pistol brace rule, have been successfully challenged in court. The courts have ruled that the ATF does not have the authority to pass these rules, subverting the powers of Congress to make laws. In an attempt to head off another defeat, the ATF and the Justice Department will claim that the power to require private sellers to obtain an FFL was delegated to them by Congress through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. The passing of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act last year changed the definition of what it means to be engaged in the business of dealing firearms. Section 12002 of the law outlines the definition. And of course, you can read all the information at the link that is in the article. And I will tag this particular link down below in the comment, or either in the comment section or in the description box, or both, honestly. Click through if you want to engage in any of the links that you see on the screen, of course. Let's see. The BSCA was a massive gun control bill that passed Congress with the support of some Republicans. The bill changed the definition of a gun seller. The BSCA altered the wording of Section 921 of Title 18 United States Code. The BSCA altered the definition of someone engaged in the business of selling guns from with the principal objective of livelihood and profit to the ambiguous statement of to predominantly earn a profit. Now the Biden administration is exploiting that change through the upcoming rule. From the latest text, or from the text of the BSCA, the term to predominantly earn a profit means that the intent underlying the sale and disposition of firearm is predominantly one of obtaining a pecuniary gain as opposed to other intents, such as improving or liquidating a personal firearms collection, provided that proof of profit shall not be required as to a person who engages in the regular and repetitive purchase and disposition of firearms for criminal purposes or terrorism. Many gun rights groups tried to warn Republicans, such as Senator John Cornyn, chief architect of the BSCA, that the Biden administration would exploit the anti-gun law, but these pleas were ignored. The main force pushing for the new rule is Everytown for Gun Safety, the Bloomberg-backed anti-freedom group who sees the new requirements for sellers to obtain an FFL to get closer to universal background checks. President Biden and other Democrat politicians have taken millions of dollars from the group, and we need to see the organization's war chest for the upcoming elections. Let's see. Universal background checks have been cornerstone of the Biden anti-gun plan, but so far have been a non-starter in Congress. With the president unable to pass any bill that includes universal background checks, the White House is doing what it considers the next best thing. This rule shows the gun community that any compromise will be used against gun rights, and the ATF claiming authority through the BSCA shows that the recent losses have the ATF scrambling to prevent future losses by pointing to legislation, even if the law has to be taken out of context. All right, wonderful reporting there, Mr. Crump. That's of course exactly what I would expect from one of John's articles. And this is scary. Look, we are going to have to keep a really close eye on this moving forward. Of course, once the comment period is opened up, remember, on the bump stock comment period, we dropped so many comments, and the frame and receiver rule, anything that was open for comments, we rang the bell from the mountaintop, and we got so many people to submit comments. Now, what it actually accomplishes, that's probably questionable at best, but you still have to make the effort. And I think that Crump is correct when he, mentions just how, desperate the ATF is for some sort of perceived win, whether it's because they're trying to pander to the agenda of the Biden administration, or rather whether they're trying to pander to the existence of their very organization. I mean, think about it in terms of budgets, right? When someone like the ATF gets a budget, if they don't use the entire budget, okay, they won't get their same procurement of money the next year. Now, of course, I'm one of those people that thinks the organization needs to be greatly reduced, if not completely abolished to begin with. However, they probably look at it in terms of, well, if we don't make ourselves relevant and don't make ourselves useful to the current administration, well, then they're going to cut our funding, or they're going to cut our budget, and then we won't have the same budget next year, or some greatly reduced budget. So the ATF is probably under a lot of internal pressure from their own leadership to do, even if it's just the perception of something, it's still something in the eyes of the current administration. And of course, if the current administration is the one giving them the marching orders, and then of course they comply with those marching orders, well, what do you think is going to happen when it comes down to their budget? They're going to get everything they need. They're going to get all the money they need. This all comes back down to, people having a job. And, the economy is crud right now. Buyer confidence is at an all-time low. Inflation is out of control. Everything is just going nuts right now. I mean, gun sales are way down. The gun industry is at one of the slowest times that it's been in quite some time. I mean, the 2020 boom of sales, really put a shot in the arm of the industry, but we're starting to see that slow down slightly. I think that people are accessorizing, buying ammo, doing training. And in summer now, a lot of folks are spending time with their family, which, of course, I would argue is a much better expenditure of your time and money, especially with how crazy things have been over the last few years with lockdowns and things. So believe me, even though you have this large organization, they still feel the pinch of things being slow, just like the regular civilian world does too. And I'm certainly not saying that is an excuse for their actions, and I'm certainly not saying that I'm trying to cover for them in some way. I'm just telling you the reality of the way I see what justifies the actions that they're undertaking in their eyes. Now, of course, we know the Biden administration is extremely anti-gun and would run them all through a wood chipper if they had their choice. So there's a couple of different ways that this can go down, and the beauty of it is that we actually kind of know already how this is going to pan out, because we know what's happening with the bump stock situation. We know what's happening with the frame and receiver rule. We know what's happening with the brace situation. So all of these things are currently being handed the slap down in federal courts all across the country. So we are gaining back some of this territory. And I think, if anything, what this sort of ends up doing is it forces the hand of the regime, if anything. So yes, it's a shot in the dark to say, well, let's just shout this rule out from the mountaintops, and you know what? Maybe people will just follow it, and they won't fight against it, and they won't challenge it, and then it'll just be just as good as law. It'll be de facto law. And maybe from a strategic standpoint, they have the right idea. If you can't get Congress to do anything, it's not like all the previous presidents haven't abused the power of the pen either. That's important to keep in mind. Don't let it cloud your judgment. You need to remember, even Trump, Obama used the power of the pen. Trump used the power of the pen. In fact, it was Trump's power of the pen that got us the bump stock situation. So if we've got two regimes in a row, two presidents in a row that have handed down some form of executive order moving against guns in some way, it does bring into question what the overall strategic value might be in that. Again, I know people always say 5D chess and this and that, but the truth is, by using executive fiat, it forces the hands of the courts to respond to this in some way. And of course, that's why gun groups such as GOA, FPC, NRA, NAGA, there's so many great gun groups that are doing great work and putting their money where their mouth is, and they're putting pressure on these people, because obviously we see the legal issues with this. We see how it can be challenged. We see that it's unconstitutional. We see that it's an erosion of our rights. And of course, because of who we are, especially here at GOA, we are a zero compromise 2A group. So we're obviously going to go after every single thing that could even have the inkling of being an infringement. But the point remains is that you almost wonder if perhaps maybe the people that are just going along with this know what the end goal, or let's just say the end result, is going to be from the very get-go. And again, I'm not giving anyone credit, and I'm not saying that people are playing 5D chess, but you almost have to wonder if even some of the rank and file folks at the ATF are thinking to themselves, Joe, this isn't going to go anywhere. You might get a temporary relief for what you're trying to accomplish, but in the long term, perhaps they even know that the courts are going to slap all of this down. And you just have to wonder if maybe they're so tired of being used as a pawn in that way, and not being given the privilege of having to have something go through Congress per se. Maybe they even feel like, gosh, maybe we should just enact all this stuff, pass every rule he wants. Yeah, throw the whole laundry list at it, and then the courts will throw it out. It could go either way. And again, I'm not trying to give anyone credit in either direction. I'm just saying, to be fair, to be unbiased in this situation, just look at the reality of human behavior, the reality of who we are, the reality of our goals politically, whatever it may be in life, right? You have to kind of consider all of the options. And I just almost wonder if even they know, and when I say they, I mean the ATF, if even the ATF knows, oh my gosh, this is just a giant cluster. Who knows? We haven't really seen a heck of a lot of enforcement action take place. Now they've gone after some of the forced reset triggers, which I will be discussing in a different video soon, so I won't get into a lot of detail on that. I'm going to be doing a completely new video on that particular thing. But they have carried out some enforcement actions. But I just fail to see the long-term success of these actions, and I don't think that they win in the court of public opinion. They certainly don't win in the literal courts, as we're seeing, and they don't win in the history books either. I think all in all, it is a giant loss that they will eventually be exacted against them, and and of course that's our job, is to fight these infringements. I'm certainly not saying that we shouldn't fight it, that we shouldn't have an issue with it or take issue with it, but I think the reality of the situation is that the courts, we actually have some pretty decent courts right now, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job. We have a decent Supreme Court right now. I mean, as you know, Senator Manchin out of West Virginia, he was very adamant about not nuking the filibuster because he knew that the Democrats wanted to pack the courts. Not to get into some nerdy crap, but the point is, though, even Manchin, a Democrat himself, recognized the importance of not nuking that filibuster because he knew that then the Republicans, once in power, because as you know, pendulum swings in both directions, that once they were in power, they would again abuse that same process. And then that's how you would wind up with a court of 40 or 50 people. And of course, who knows how that's going to go? It just becomes a giant politicized mousetrap, if you will. Anyway, the point remains, though, that we'd have a pretty decent Supreme Court that has been handing down some doozies here lately. So, we have to take that at our advantage. We have to, use the tools at our disposal and take the lanes that we need to take to legally and, let's just say, politically solve the issue, right? We're use the ballot box, if you will. So we're still on the ballot box, okay? There are other boxes, as we know, but I think the ballot box still holds potential, and we have to be strong and courageous, and we have to be smart about what we're doing. And it's always important to stay in good communication with each other. Know your people nearby. Always have a good network of folks that you can trust. Always be politically active. Try to know what's going on in your state. There's a lot of state level legislation that gets passed down the line that you have to pay attention to. Of course, things like executive orders and big federal gun control, we're always going to cover on all the major channels. You're going to see guys like Jared over at Guns and Gadget, Washington Gun Law. There are so many great channels. Arms Scholar is amazing. So there's so many people putting out daily information. There's absolutely no reason to not stay informed in what's going on. Of course, you can follow John Crump News, AmmoLand. There's so many options for you to stay informed. An informed society is an impossible society to control without their own thoughts in their hearts and minds. I mean, that's really what this all comes down to. This is about trying to control your very heart and soul, the very narrative of your life. An informed citizen is an impossible citizen to beat in every level. So it's very important. I wanted to share this information. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's video. There are many more on the way, and make sure that you click the notification bell so that you're getting all of our videos. Our view counts have been a little wiry lately. I know folks are on vacation and hanging out with the fam, which of course is amazing. I definitely am very happy that folks are getting out and doing some stuff. We'll be here when you get back. Don't worry. But make sure that you do click that notification bell so that you are getting an email every time we post a video here on YouTube. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.